I am ranked number one. One! That means I'm the best.
Just to add to Oscar's heaping praise on Errol Spence Jr., just to add to the stream I did yesterday, it's also an inadvertent shot at Mayweather, who was also co-signing Errol Spence to take on Keith Thurman and be the next big thing. Although Spence is not signed to TMT, it was also a passing shot at Al Heyman. Because there's a certain etiquette amongst promoters, unless you have little respect. Well, Heyman's not a promoter, he's an advisor, but he owns fighters. There's a certain etiquette between stables that you don't try and poach other rival camps' fighters while they're still contracted, or make a pitch, or insinuate, or hint that this is what you'd like to do. You don't do that. There's a certain etiquette, because potentially you could put ideas in a fighter's head that, okay, yeah, maybe I would like to switch, and potentially unsettle the rival stable's fighter or fighters. That's just my opinion, and I'm theorizing. I believe it's a potential shot to say, yo, look, guys, I might just come over there and start picking fighters off. Oscar's telling us that he's going to promote him like Sugar Ray Leonard. Why didn't you promote a lot of good fighters you had in your roster as the next Sugar Ray Leonard? Why Errol Spence? Why couldn't Keith Thurman be the next Sugar Ray Leonard? I know Keith wasn't contracted to Golden Boy, but they promoted many of his fights when Al was siphoning fighters through. Why couldn't Deontay Wilder have been the next George Foreman on Golden Boy? It's also a backhanded swipe at Al Heyman to say, you don't know how to build up fighters so they can become superstars. Because I guess Oscar could probably argue that Floyd was already a pound-for-pound guy, a top pound-for-pound guy when he left Top Rank and Bob Arum and started doing or making groundbreaking accomplishments with Al. But then some would argue it's Richard Schaefer who built Canelo and not Oscar. That's what I was hearing yesterday, and I was interested to hear that argument. So does Al Heyman have any bona fide superstars who could do pay-per-view today? No, he doesn't, but what he has is the next generation on his roster. You know, Porter is still in the debate. Broner fading a little, but still in the debate. Still in the debate, somewhat. Erislandy Lara is probably never going to be a pay-per-view guy, if he hasn't been already. Gary Russell, inactive, borderline if he's still in the debate. Thurman is still in the debate, and Danny Garcia, they're going to face off soon. They're still in the debate. Gerald Washington, he gets his shot tonight against Deontay Wilder. Wilder is definitely in the debate. Washington, he can force the issue with an impressive performance tonight. They're in the debate. Errol Spence, who Oscar has been talking up recently, he's approaching the debate. Robert Easter Jr., he's approaching, still a way off. Marcus Maidana has now retired. He's made his name. Daniel Jacobs, what can he do against Triple G to put himself in the debate? Chad Dawson was the best light heavyweight at one stage. The two Charlo brothers are approaching the debate. Leo Santa Cruz just beat Carl Frampton. I'm going to call that a borderline for other reasons I have in my head. Lamont Peterson just became a champion in the debate. There's still a resume, to be honest. He's got a quality resume. Amir Khan perhaps gets knocked out too much times if you're going to dissect a modern day resume where they fight less per year than they did back in the day. So if you fight twice a year and in one of them fights you get knocked out, and it's happened a couple of times, no. They would have to say probably no right now. But he will go down as a very good fighter. Paulie Malignaggi, quite a character. Won a couple of titles. I hear people talking about Caleb Plant, where he's way off at the moment. Marcus Brown needs to get back on the horse. Javante Davis. And I could go on and on and on and on and on and on and on until the break of dawn. Yeah? There's a lot of prospects. There's Erickson Lubins. There's James DeGales. There's Steve Cunninghams, who've all done things to a certain level. Just so many fighters. Is there an argument with so much fighters on the roster and good fighters that the quantity could be counteractive to, I want to say the word grooming, to grooming a pound-for-pound guy. If you had a smaller stable, if you had a smaller roster of fighters, you could pay more attention to the promotion in terms of getting them to be household names. There's a potential argument there. There's a potential argument. I think the other argument there is he has a young stable as well. There's lots of guys who I called out who haven't reached nowhere near the potential yet, and they're still a little way off doing that. So if that was a shot by Oscar to say, well, Al isn't promoting no superstars, or he doesn't know how to promote an Errol Spence, there's a split debate on it from my perspective. There's a split debate. Sergei Lipinets, people have been talking about, Lee Selby. There's lots of guys there. There's lots of guys there. Yeah? And 2022 will have a better picture of what superstars Al produced from what he didn't. We'll have a better picture in 2022, in my opinion. Oscar De La Hoya too. Let's see what Oscar's doing in 2022. I mean, I guess Al could take one of his fighters and make a Gervonta Davis weight for him and make him fight all types of odd weight stipulated matches and stuff like that. Yeah, of course. And build him up like that. Win a good few of your world titles with very dubious weight stipulations, over and under, a good few of them. Miss the weight limit and still get the title shot. I guess he could do that. But then again, Spence probably hasn't got a fan base who would tolerate a lot of the stuff that Oscar and Canelo have got away with. They won't tolerate that. He probably has a fan base won't tolerate what the likes of Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. has done and got away with. Won't tolerate that. So it wouldn't be that easy to do that with Spence. Perhaps. Spence, being an American fighter relying on an American fan base, has to compete with NFL and NBA. Canelo doesn't, in terms of his Mexican fan base. Their other great sport is soccer, or what we call football over here. I mean, what's Oscar going to do? Put Spence on Cinco de Mayo? Al Heyman has done a good job with Spence. And regardless of what anyone wants to say, even with Canelo and Oscar, Canelo has to perform and he has to win. No matter how much advantages he's given or how unfair the playing field seems for his opponents, he still has to get out there and perform. And that's the same with Spence. Yeah? It would be interesting if Spence can win the title and win a couple of belts and maybe be dominant for a couple of years. Maybe win a super welterweight title. It would be interesting to see how Heyman builds up one of his young fighters on his roster to become a household name. It's going to be interesting. But I believe he has the expertise to do so. Also, Al doesn't either have the luxury or has the foresight not to put anything out there, just every and anything out there as pay-per-view. He is, to a degree, revolutionizing the sport with the PBC, free-to-air boxing. It's still in its infancy. Let's wait until 2022, where some of his harshest critics, mostly Oscar De La Hoya affiliated, you know the names. You know the names. So-called journalists and writers, in my opinion, don't think the PBC will be around. They think Al Heyman will be probably being flogged to death in front of the public for his immoral practices. But we shall see. 5 years is a fair gauge. We'll see if Al's still around, if the PBC is still around, what shape his roster is in, etc., etc. We shall see. We shall see. I do know this currently. We're getting free-to-air boxing and we've had some great cards. And we're getting some great title matches. And a lot of them are not pay-per-view, even if they're on Showtime. I do know that. I do know they've given more value between PBC and Showtime and the other networks he's purchased than Golden Boy, Top Rank and HBO put together. I do know that.